opens up the box and plays the game. He never reads instructions cause they're lame. He's Bowser. He plays the game so badly, his eyes are twitching madly. He's here again so sadly. He's Bowser.
Hello, welcome back. Right, as you can see from the title, I've been the beneficiary of yet another generous donation from the one, the only, the great Brian Dickinson. He's a fantastic bloke and he's donated a lot to me over the last few months, as have various other people, and I'm incredibly grateful for everything that everyone sent me. It's generated in my head a topic of discussion that I'd like to sort of engage you all in, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So Brian, that is called Brian, you are a superstar, and just want to put it out there that I'm incredibly appreciative of your continued support. It's absolutely fantastic, much appreciated. Now, I might shift around very uncomfortably from time to time in this video, and there's a reason for it. I'm not the youngest bloke in the world anymore. I'm not in the best of health. The reasons for it being, yesterday, my wife and myself, we took our youngest daughter, no we didn't, we took our eldest daughter to Colchester Zoo for a day out. It was a lovely day, really, really, really nice. The weather was nice, all the animals were out to play, but the place seems to be built on the side of a hill. It's up, down, it's varying degrees, etc. Plus its footprint is absolutely massive. So by the end of it, we got there about 10 AM yesterday and we left just before 6. You know, my feet and knees were really, really killing me. And on top of that, today we decided again with eldest daughter that we would go out for something to eat. So we went for a Toby Carvery, and I've never been to one before. And it was like a kid in a sweet shop, all those Yorkshire puddings, roast potatoes, etc. and being told you can return as many times as you like to get more. Well, I feel a bit like Bazza Creosote now. Don't show me a wafer thin mint. Whatever you do, I will likely explode, and that's not, well, at least it'll probably make the video go viral. But yeah, it's sitting just sort of round there, that sort of uncomfortable area. And no, youngest daughter didn't want to come with us on either day, because at the moment she's at that age where being seen out with your parents is the most uncool thing on the planet. And the boy is old and he's moved out now anyway. So anyway, let's get on to this. Now, Brian sent me 5 games, and these are all from software projects. Now, I don't know an awful lot about software projects other than Jet Set Willy and Manic Miner, obviously two of the biggest, most iconic games of the Spectrum era. Bug Bite obviously released Manic Miner first, and then software projects picked it up, but they released Jet Set Willy. If I've got that précis right, please correct me if I've got it wrong. But I didn't know an awful lot about any of their other stuff. I don't think I've ever played any of the other stuff they were responsible for, and it wasn't just those games that that they released. I do have Dragon's Lair 2, Escape from Singe's Castle, that I bought back in the day. Still got my original copy of it, which was a software projects game. But I played it for about an hour on the day that I got it, found it way too difficult, and I've never loaded it up since. So anyway, let's go through these 5 games that he's sent me, and I'm going to hover on each one for a few seconds, because that's going to lead into what it is that I want to talk about. So first thing he sent me is Astronaut, which is all these games, I don't know anything about them. I've never played any of them, so I'm going to have fun sort of discovering them and playing them. So that's Astronaut. And now we have Tribble Trouble, if you can see that. Next we've got Orion. Is that focusing all right? Yeah. Oh, excuse me. What's this one actually? Push Off. Don't know it at all, like all the others. And then we've got Thruster. Now the reason I've focused on them on the camera for a few seconds more than just going wallop, 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 is because I noticed they've got a really, really distinct cover art style. Now I don't know, people please correct me on this, fill in the gaps for me. I don't know if it was the same artist did the artwork for all Software Projects games, but they're really, really full of character and sort of design, etc. They've got really, really nice, bold, colourful artwork on them that when you saw them on the shelf, I'm sure they would have made them stand out from other titles that were on there from other publishers, etc. Now that is what has led me into wanting to sort of open this discussion about how big a part did the actual packaging of a game play in your choice of whether or not you bought it when you're standing there in the shop and you've got you'll remember in your W.H. Smiths and your boots, the great big long wide shelves with all the games etc. on them. And it just made me want to sort of start a discussion about that. You know, did you ever buy a game that you hadn't read a review of based purely on how it looked on the shelf? Now, how something looked on the shelf didn't necessarily mean that what was inside the box was any good. World Cup Carnival, Great Space Race, two of the most guilty parties that spring to the top of my head. But some publishers and developers clearly paid a lot of credence and a lot of heed to the importance of the packaging of things on shelves. In particular, Ultimate Play the game with Night Law, Saberwolf, Underworld, Alienate, the big cardboard boxes with the glorious artwork stickers on the front and the fantastically well produced printed glossy inlay cards etc. On top of the fact that the games were actually sort of quite good. Now I don't have any of those big box games anymore, those big box Ultimate games anymore. I had a bit of a crisis last year and had to sell some stuff, and one of the things that went was those Ultimate games, which are, you know, is a shame, but I'll always be able to pick them up some way or another. They're not exactly rare, excuse the pun. So that made me sort of think as well, like a lot of the time we as kids were limited to what we could actually buy, and obviously budget titles played a big part, made up a big part of our collection. And over the course of my collecting, I've picked up, you know, dozens upon dozens of budget titles, especially some of the Mastertronic earlier 199 games. Now again, to me, they've all got some really, really striking artwork that, were you to see it on a shelf, it would make them sort of jump out at you. Now on a lot of occasions the game didn't match the quality of the artwork, but I just want to show you a few examples of what I mean. Now, you know, you'll be familiar with most of these if I sort of showed you them, and especially if you were a big consumer of budget software back in the day. I've got the Empire Fights Back. Journey's End. You see all the artwork on these things is really, really great. On these little tiny cases. Alcatraz Harry. They always had kind of like a sort of cartoony aspect to them, he says, and then moves on to Non Terraqueous, which hasn't got a cartoony aspect to it at all. A really, really great sort of cover picture on that one. Lap of the Gods. Ken Tiller, which I think is actually a re-release of a game by, I don't know, it's by Derek Brewster. I can't remember who released it originally. People, please help me out with that one. Universal Hero. Action Biker. Now that is a shit game. That is absolutely abysmal. One of the worst budget games I own, and so, a lot of the budget titles were absolutely crap. Chiller. The Incredible Shrinking Fireman, again, sort of showing off that really, really great cartoon style they employed on quite a lot of their artwork. Storm. I did do a video of that. It's a kind of Eagle's Nest Gauntlet clone, and it's not very good. I say it's not very good. It's not very good, not because it's poorly programmed and made. It's very well programmed and made, but it's incredibly frustrating, some of the control issues, etc. Amarotes, that's one of the mad games. Mastertronic Added Dimension. And then we move on to things, well, the final one of the Mastertronics here, I'm going to show you is Finders Keepers. Now that is probably one of the best ones. Absolutely fantastic. Again, the sort of cartoon sort of showing off the fantastic artwork there. I remember reading in a copy of Retro Gamer many years ago that when David Jones was interviewed, he actually made the revelation that Magic Knight is actually a she. So, we never knew that. Okay, so that's just a few. Now, obviously, as things went on, you know, packaging got bigger and bigger, they stuffed more shit in the box. And you know, there are just sort of like questions sort of surrounding that, and some examples of my own. This was one of the first games I bought. This is actually not a collected piece. This is my actual game that I got when my mum took me to the sadly long gone Jones Brothers store up in the Holloway Road in North London. Gift from the Gods by Ocean. And it still works because I was playing it the other week, and that sort of sat on the shelf just sort of like staring out at you when everything mostly was still sort of that size. You know, this, I think the Ultimate Sabre Wolf and Nightlaw were out before this, not too sure. You know, really, really obviously sort of like gave it a fighting chance because it stood out against the eye, or stood out to the eye. Now it didn't work all the time, every time. As I mentioned, games like World Cup Carnival, The Great Space Race, absolutely abysmal games, but they tried to sort of get round that by fancy packaging, etc. A sort of curio game, this one, that I sort of picked up. The Tripods. Anyone remember the Tripods? The game in particular. I know it was a TV series that the BBC did and then stopped suddenly after like 2 series, having told only like a quarter of the story or something like that. So I wonder if the BBC will ever pick that game up again. Pick that franchise up again to continue from where they left off or restart again. But the game itself is not particularly great. But if you were, at the time when it came out, it's by Redshift, and this was sitting on the shelf and you were a fan of the TV show, you know, that would have stood out like a sort, you know, stood out to you amongst all the other stuff. And I wonder how many copies that sold, because I've not encountered hardly any other people who have even knew that there was a Tripods game or played it. So if you are one of those people, what did you think of it? Did you own it back in the time? Let me know. So talking about gumph and things in boxes, when it was done right, it was fantastic and represented fantastic value for money. This again is my original copy of Star Glider. Now in here you get a keyboard overlay, you get a big poster, you get a novella that's written by the bloke who wrote the Lewis Collins film Who Dares Wins, if you remember that one. I think I'm missing something, but it's in incredibly sort of good condition, etc. And you know, as an overall package, it's really, really, really good. This is my original copy of Platoon from Ocean, which is missing one thing of all the included extras, and I think it's the cast, I'm not sure. But this came with not only the game, you got, that's the cast photo. Now I'm sure there is something missing from this. You get a chance to win it on VHS, win a copy of the film. You get the instructions, and you also get Smokey Robinson's music cassette, Tracks of My Tears, which was the soundtrack to the film. Which, you know, again, I think this only cost a tenner. Represented sort of like great value, really. And I remember having that song playing in the car. Used to take that in the car when my mum and dad were taking us anywhere, and would ask if I could put it on and listen to it a couple of times, because it's, other than being included in a classic game of a classic film, the song is also a classic as well. Good old Smokey. Right, now also, one of my favourite Spectrum game artworks is The Great Escape. Now I think that is absolutely a fantastic cover, and again, if you saw that sitting on a shelf, etc., that would leap out of you and make you buy it. So that's the basis of this video. Basically, it's a thank you to Brian for yet more fantastic donations to the channel. I couldn't, you know, I can't express how much I appreciate that gesture, Brian. You're a top banana. But also, I want to generate the discussion. You know, how much did cover artwork, you know, box art on the shelf, fool us? How many times did you buy a game because the cover looked great, etc., only to get it home and find, ooh, this is a bit ropey, especially if you hadn't read any reviews, etc., etc. And I'd like to hear what you think, what you consider to be your favourite game box art from back in the era. Also, as well as, I forgot to do this bit, examples of ones that are really actually quite crap. Now, again, I've collected a couple over the years, some recent editions. This first one was actually yet another thing that Brian sent me a few months ago, but I can't get the tape to work. It's from New Generation Software, who did Trashman, and it's 3D tunnel, and it looks like, you know, something's been knocked up by a 5-year-old with a colouring book. Really is not a fantastic cover at all, but bear in mind a lot of these were sort of like bedroom businesses when they started up back in the day. And this is woeful as well. ETX. Now, I bought this game on the strength of Larry Bundy's video. It's a Spectrum conversion of ET for the Atari 2600. You know, widely considered one of the worst games ever. It's actually by a long shot not the worst game ever, but it's, you know, still bad, but nowhere near as bad as people make it out. And I didn't know that this game existed until he did a video on it. And I saw it on one of the Sinclair Sales Facebook group a couple of months back, and thought, oh, I'll pick that up, I'll get that for a video. And I haven't got round to making the video yet. I know the tape doesn't load, but the artwork on that is absolutely abysmal, and it's loaded with outlandish claims, such as Abex took over 3 months to develop this, the finest home program on the market. Home Computing magazine seems to agree. Speech is effective and must be at the limit of Spectrum capabilities. Graphics are excellent and animation superb. A combination of graphics, adventure, maze and chase games makes this an unusual, fascinating and addictive program which must rank among the Spectrum classics. Value for money, 100%. Graphics, 100%. Score, 100%. This is an objective assessment by an independent body. There can be no doubt this is the best. I've never read so much bollocks on a game inlay as that one. And just to make sure that, just to show you, I'm not making that up. It's written there, as you can see. Now, that will have fooled a lot of people in, you know, if they were a bit soft in the head, I suppose. The majority of us would have gone, what? But yeah, so that was it. It's, you know, what's your examples of the best Spectrum cover artwork from back in the day and the worst? Similarly, what's the best game you've played with really crap artwork, such as Ghosts and Goblins? My God, the cover art on that is abysmal. And what's the game with the best artwork that is the worst? You know, let's have a look, see how that goes. Right, thanks ever so much for enduring my continued incessant waffling. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you like the video, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, please, please, please join in the discussion. Thanks ever so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.